At the party, my family smiled for the photos, but whispered for me to cover that war scar. Then a retired colonel noticed my faded unit tattoo, and the whole room went silent. You know, there are some wounds that never truly heal, and sometimes the deepest ones aren't left by shrapnel, but by the people who are supposed to love you most. After 6 years of utter silence, a cream envelope landed in my rural mailbox, a deceptively innocent package that would unleash a firestorm and reveal the sickening depths of my family's betrayal. It wasn't just any envelope, the gold embossing, the Gentry family crest. It was my father, Harrison Gentry's 68th birthday invitation. I tore it open right there on the gravel drive, the October wind whipping around me, but I didn't feel the cold. Inside, heavy cardstock announced the celebration at Oakmont Country Club. But it was the RSVP card that truly stopped my heart. Someone had already marked yes in unfamiliar handwriting, tracing over my name, Maris Gentry, like they'd hesitated, wondering if I should even be included. 6 years of being ghosted, and now this presumptuous yes on my behalf. The audacity. Back in my tiny one-bedroom apartment, the invitation felt like a ticking bomb on my kitchen counter. This place wasn't fancy, but it was mine. No judgment for the military memorabilia on my walls or the practical, no-frills furniture. My eyes drifted to the bookshelf, to the simple framed photo of my combat medic unit, Shadow Echo. God, we looked impossibly young then, faces serious, eyes bright with a naive purpose. 3 tours later, none of us had that look anymore. My fingers instinctively found the thick scar running down my right forearm, smooth beneath my touch. 3 more inches to the left, and I wouldn't even be standing here, contemplating this invitation. On my dresser sat Lieutenant Garcia's worn leather cuff. He'd worn it every single day for protection, he'd always said with that crooked smile, until the day he didn't need it anymore. His wife insisted I take it after the ambush. Some protection it turned out to be. My Purple Heart was gathering dust in a drawer, honorable discharge papers filed away. All that sacrifice, all that trauma, and my family still introduced me as Maris, who was in the army for a while. I pulled out my overnight bag, my hands moving with that old military precision, folding clothes with sharp corners out of habit. An indigo dress, long-sleeved, high-necked, it would cover most of my scars, appropriate for Oakmont, without trying too hard. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of criticizing my appearance. Looking in the mirror, strong features stared back at me. Weathered eyes. A no-nonsense Bob. Not my sister Ivy's meticulously highlighted perfection, but serviceable. The invitation, resting against my bedside lamp, felt less like a peace offering and more like a tactical alert. Then my phone rang, making me jump. It was Cousin Nash, the family fixer, all forced cheerfulness. Like a used car salesman. Maris, glad I caught you. Just checking if you got the message about Uncle Harrison's birthday. I got the invitation. I kept my voice neutral. Great, great. So, how's your current situation? Everything stable? The careful emphasis on current situation made my spine stiffen. What did that mean? You know, just checking in. Everyone wants to make sure you're doing well. Taking your medication regularly? The VA benefits. Coming through okay? His questions sounded innocent, but alarm bells were ringing. I glanced at my calendar, marked with VA appointments and veteran support group meetings. Everything's fine, Nash. My suspicion grew. Good to hear. We just want to help if you need it. Family takes care of family. Right? My eyes drifted to a cardboard box under my bed labeled Truth, Never Lose. Inside were military records, medical evaluations, discharge papers, documentation I'd kept safe through 3 moves and countless family dismissals. After hanging up, I stood at my door, invitation in hand. The sensible thing would be to toss it, claim a work commitment, avoid the whole charade. But then Ivy's text buzzed. Dad expects all family there. I flashed back to childhood dinner tables, to my father's expectations that were commandments, not requests. The heavy silence, the cold shoulder that could last for weeks if someone disappointed him. No, I wouldn't disappoint him by not showing up. Not this time. I slid Lieutenant Garcia's cuff over my scar, my armor for whatever battlefield awaited. I took one last glance at the shadow echo. Unit photo. 8 faces, 3 now gone. I survived worse than this, I whispered to the empty apartment. I closed my door with quiet determination. If they wanted Maris Gentry at the family gathering, they were going to get her, scars, truth, and all. On the day of my father's birthday, Oakmont Country Club loomed like a fortress of privilege. My old Ford pickup groaned between a gleaming Mercedes and an immaculate BMW. The valet's smile froze when he saw my keys, his eyes darting to a colleague. It's been well maintained, I offered. Unnecessarily. He nodded too quickly, pocketing the keys like they might contaminate him. The grand ballroom glittered with calculated opulence. Crystal chandeliers, polished surfaces, a kaleidoscope of wealth. I adjusted Garcia's cuff, making sure it completely covered the scar. I could feel the weight of eyes following me across the marble floor, assessing, measuring, finding fault. Ivy materialized before I even reached the bar, her designer dress flowing like liquid silver. Her appearance was a military operation of its own, hair perfect, makeup flawless, jewelry sparkling. You came. Her air kiss didn't disturb a single strand. You brought a wrap, right? For your arm. The concern in her voice didn't reach her eyes. I don't need a wrap. But the children might, she said, just as my mother, Lorraine, glided up, diamonds winking. Her smile tightened when it landed on me. You actually came. How unexpected. Her gaze cataloged my sensible shoes, my indigo dress, finding every element that failed to meet her impossible standards. Try not to mention you. No, over there. She tilted her head toward a cluster of Harrison's business associates. You mean my military service? I kept my voice neutral. Don't be difficult, Maris. Not tonight. Lorraine squeezed my arm just above the cuff. Harrison has important people here. A photographer began gathering family for portraits. Before I could protest, Ivy steered me behind a massive floral arrangement. The lighting's better for you here, she said, rearranging my position. What she really meant was that I was partially hidden, a footnote in the family composition. Harrison Gentry stood at the center of every photograph, silver hair and tailored suit projecting authority. When I stepped forward for the family portrait, his eyes acknowledged me without warmth. Maris. My name sounded foreign on his lips. Happy birthday, Dad. His nod was both acknowledgement and dismissal. Don't let the kids see that scar, Lorraine whispered as we posed. It's upsetting. Across the room, I noticed my father's attorney, the family fixer, watching me. His observation wasn't casual. Nothing in this room was. I retreated to the bar, ordered water, and watched the carefully choreographed dance of family politics. Conversations shifted when I approached. Groups closed ranks. Ivy's children, Trevor and Paige, avoided eye contact, clearly coached on how to handle Aunt Maris. Great turnout, cousin. Nash said, appearing at my elbow, his phone angled slightly toward me. Everyone who matters is here. The emphasis wasn't subtle. You seem very interested in documenting the evening, I observed, nodding at his phone. Nash slipped it into his pocket, just capturing memories. But I'd seen enough surveillance operations to recognize one. My hackles rose as I overheard fragments of conversations, unstable condition, troubled history. Such a shame about Maris. I retreated to a quiet corner, finally understanding. This invitation wasn't reconciliation. It was reconnaissance. My family didn't want me here. They needed me here. For some purpose I hadn't yet uncovered. Then the formal toast began. Guests raised crystal flutes. Harrison took center stage, acknowledging his wife, his successful daughter Ivy, his grandchildren, his business partners. My name never crossed his lips. Ivy's husband, Richard, swirled his champagne. To family members who actually Contribute, he said, to appreciative laughter from his circle. I reached for my water glass, Garcia's leather cuff sliding slightly. A movement caught my eye. A gray-haired man at a nearby table had gone still, his attention fixed on my exposed wrist. I adjusted the cuff, but it was too late. The edge of my faded shadow echo tattoo was visible. The man rose slowly. Colonel Emmett Pike. Older now, but unmistakable with his military bearing and piercing gaze. Medic Gentry? His voice cut through the sudden silence. The room froze. My family's careful. Narrative hung suspended between us. I stood, spine straightening automatically. Colonel. The wolves in designer clothing watched as their carefully constructed den of lies began to crack. Colonel Pike approached, his gaze locked on the tattoo now visible on my wrist. Conversations around us faded. Even the pianist stopped. Pike stopped 3 feet from me, perfect military distance. Echo walks in shadow, he said, his voice clear and carrying the classified call and response of our unit. The words hit me like a physical blow. My reply came without thought, muscle memory taking over, but never walks alone. Sergeant Gentry, Pike said, not a question but an acknowledgement. Sir. At ease, Sergeant. A bare hint of a smile. It's been some time. Ivy appeared at my elbow, her fingers digging into my arm. Maris, Mother needs help with something. Pike turned to her, and whatever Ivy saw in his face made her words dry up. You must be the sister, he said, his tone pleasant but with an undercurrent of steel. Interesting that you never mentioned your sister ran a field hospital in Kandahar. The silence around us deepened. I could feel the weight of stares. I don't think this is the appropriate venue for. Ivy began. She saved my nephew's life. Pike cut her off, his voice carrying across the silent room. Staff. Sergeant James Morello. Compound fracture of the femur, arterial bleeding, collapsed lung. 3. Other medics said he wouldn't make it through the night. My throat tightened. James Morello. I remembered him. The impossible odds, the dwindling supplies, the generator failing during the most critical part of the procedure. Your sister operated for 7 hours straight while mortars fell less than a mile away. When the generator failed, she finished by flashlight. Never once lost focus. Pike's eyes met mine. That field hospital she ran saved 63 American soldiers and 22 Afghan civilians over 3 months, all while under periodic fire. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Across the room, I spotted my father's face, ashen beneath his tan. The champagne flute in his hand tilted dangerously. 3 tours, Pike continued, his voice carrying the weight of command. A Purple Heart that should have been a silver star. Colonel. I started, discomfort crawling up my spine. This wasn't how I wanted tonight to go. Sir. With all due respect, some of this information is classified. He shook his head. Not the parts that matter. Not the heroism. My mother materialized beside Ivy, her smile brittle. What a lovely story, she said, voice artificially bright. Maris has always had such an active imagination. Come, Colonel, let me introduce you to my husband. Harrison is so looking forward to. We've met. Pike cut her off without looking away from me. In fact, I believe Harrison was the one who claimed his daughter worked in supply logistics overseas. Curious discrepancy. My father abruptly set down his glass and walked away from his own toast, leaving the room. His attorney followed like a shadow. There seems to be some confusion, my mother said, her voice climbing half an octave. Maris had some difficulties after her service. Memory issues, you understand. Pike's eyebrow rose a fraction. Memory issues, he repeated flatly. This isn't the place, I murmured, suddenly aware of the spectacle we were creating. Sir, perhaps we could. Perfect place, I'd say. He gestured toward a table in the corner where 4 men and 2 women sat, watching us. Some people you should meet, Sergeant. Fellow veterans who'd appreciate the chance to thank you properly. My mother's hand clamped on my arm. Maris needs to help with the cake presentation. I wasn't aware the guest of honor had cake duties, Pike said mildly. Something shifted in my chest, a loosening of chains I'd carried so long I forgot their weight. I gently removed my mother's hand. I'll help after I speak with the colonel's friends, I said, meeting her gaze directly. Her eyes narrowed. This isn't appropriate. I touched Lieutenant Garcia's cuff, drawing strength from the worn leather. Neither is leaving veterans waiting, Mother. Pike led me toward the table, and the group rose in unison as we approached, military habits that never quite fade. Introductions flowed. They welcomed me with a respect I hadn't felt in years. Jack Reynolds, 101st Airborne, said a man with a prosthetic hand. Heard about your work in Kandahar from my battalion medic. Rachel Martinez, Marines, offered a woman with close-cropped gray hair. Served in Helmand Province when your unit came through in 14. One by one, they greeted me, using my rank, asking about specific operations I'd long assumed no one in my civilian life would ever know about or understand. Their acknowledgement felt like oxygen after years underwater. The benefits situation treating you right? Pike asked casually as we sat. VA can VA. Bureaucratic nightmare. I blinked, caught off guard by the shift in topic. It's manageable. What's your current disability rating? Asked Reynolds, his tone conversational, but eyes sharp. 70%? I answered automatically. For the injuries from the Ghazni evac? Martinez frowned. Should be higher with the nerve damage. Pike's gaze intensified. What's the monthly payment running these days? Still holding at $1,950. Something cold settled in my stomach. How did he know the exact amount? Before he could answer, I saw Nash approaching, phone held at waist level, camera lens visible. Maris, your mother needs you. Nash called, not bothering to acknowledge the veterans. Across the room, Ivy created a commotion, loudly gasping over a wine spill, drawing attention away from our corner. Just a family misunderstanding, I heard someone murmur behind me. Poor Maris and her delusions, the families tried everything. Pike slipped something into my palm, a business card, which I pocketed without looking. We've got your 6, Sergeant, he said quietly. Call that number tomorrow. I nodded, noticing my father had returned with the family attorney. Their heads were bent in conversation, both occasionally glancing my way. Maris has been confused lately, Nash said to no one in particular. The families considering getting her some help. The veterans exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. Think I'll excuse myself, I said, rising from my seat. The group nodded in understanding. We'll be here, Pike promised. I walked away with a new purpose, not toward Nash or Ivy or my parents, but toward the hallway that led to my father's study. The veterans' quiet nods of support followed me as I left the main party behind. The old drawer key had rested on my keyring for 6 years, a reminder of what I'd left behind. Tonight, it would open doors to the truth my family tried to bury. 5 minutes later, the key slid into the front door lock with a whisper of familiarity. 6 years since I'd entered this house, but muscle memory guided my hand. I slipped inside, grateful for the empty hallway. Everyone was still at Oakmont, celebrating Harrison Gentry's illustrious life. Framed photographs lined the entryway like a museum exhibit, Ivy beaming, Ivy cutting ribbons, Ivy's children. My fingers trailed along the wall where gaps interrupted the display, spaces where my accomplishments once hung. My high school valedictorian photo, my college graduation, my military commissioning. All removed, as if I never existed. The house breathed around me, settling noises I recognized from childhood. The tick of the grandfather clock. The hum of the central air. The slight creak of the 3rd floorboard. I moved with deliberate steps toward my father's office. The mahogany door stood half open, inviting and forbidding. I paused, then pushed forward. Harrison's office remained a shrine to self-importance. Certificates, photos with minor celebrities. The massive desk dominated the room, designed to intimidate. I slid into his leather chair, the material cool against my bare arms. It adjusted automatically, cradling me in unexpected comfort. From this vantage point, I saw what he saw, a position of authority, of control. "Let's see what you've been hiding, Harrison," I muttered, reaching for the bottom right drawer. My hands didn't shake as I inserted the small brass key. The lock turned with a satisfying click. The drawer slid open on silent runners, revealing meticulously labeled manila folders. I lifted the first one, labeled 2016. Inside, a discharge form. My discharge form. Critical details altered. Where field medic should appear, someone had typed logistics. My combat service erased with a stroke of a keyboard. Son of a bitch. The next folder contained VA disability documentation. Monthly payments of $1,950, redirected to an account I didn't recognize. I flipped through statements spanning 9 years, doing quick mental math. Over $210,000 of my benefits vanished. My throat tightened as I pulled out bank statements, showing the final destination of those funds. Lorraine's personal account. Regular transfers to Ivy's mortgage company. Tuition payments to Winchester Academy, where Ivy's children attended. They stole from me to fund their comfortable lives. A third folder contained veterans' cemetery plot reservations for Harrison and Lorraine. Paid for with my stolen benefits. The irony burned in my chest. The very people stealing my disability payments, planning their eternal rest on my dime. My fingers found another document. Guardianship. Application forms with my name typed neatly at the top. Already drafted. Awaiting submission. Attached medical evaluations declared me mentally incompetent to manage financial affairs. The psychiatrist's signature looked nothing like Dr. Ramsey's from the VA. Another forgery. A post-it note in Lorraine's handwriting. File after birthday gathering? Lawyer suggests we need one more. Incident report. The final document outlined plans to liquidate my assets once guardianship was secured. My apartment, my truck, my savings, all to be managed by Harrison as my guardian. My jaw ached from clenching. The family that couldn't be bothered to acknowledge my service now planned to profit from it after erasing the truth of what I endured. I photographed each document methodically, angling my phone to capture every detail. My hands remained steady, training taking over despite the fury building inside me. Each betrayal documented with military precision. I texted the photos to Colonel Pike with a simple message, Shadow Echo. Protocol. Evidence secured. His response came immediately, acknowledged. Safe house ready. The distant sound of car doors slamming snapped me to attention. They were back from the party. I replaced each document exactly as I found it, aligning papers precisely, maintaining the illusion that nothing had been disturbed. The drawer closed with a soft thud, lock engaged, key pocketed. I moved silently through the kitchen to the back door, the same exit I used as a teenager, sneaking out to meet friends Harrison didn't approve of. The handle turned smoothly under my palm. Outside, the night air cooled my flesh skin. I circled around to the street where my pickup waited, sliding behind the wheel just as headlights swept the driveway. Back at my apartment complex later that night, exhaustion settled over me like a heavy blanket. I trudged up the stairs, keys jingling. A white envelope protruded from my mailbox. No return address. Just a Boise, Idaho postmark. Inside, handwritten words on simple stationery. Dear Maris, Luis says. 17 now, wants to be a nurse. He keeps your picture on his desk while he studies. He says you showed him what courage looks like. I know your family didn't see you, but we did. With eternal gratitude. Maria Hernandez. I pressed the letter to my chest, feeling the paper crinkle against my heart. Somewhere in Idaho. The little boy I carried through gunfire remembered me, saw me, while my own family worked to erase me. The truth sat in my phone now, undeniable evidence of their betrayal. But this letter, this was evidence too, of a different kind of family, the kind you find, not the kind you're born to. I slipped Lieutenant Garcia's cuff off my wrist, and placed it beside the letter on my kitchen counter. From now on, I wouldn't need to hide my scars anymore. And in a week, I would gather the evidence to fight them and win. The next week, the veteran roast coffee shop smelled of rich espresso and fresh baked pastries. Colonel Pike sat across from me, his weathered hands resting beside a manila folder that looked thin, but carried the weight of my future. The morning crowd bustled around us, civilian lives continuing, while we waged a different kind of war. "Your documentation is meticulous, Gentry," he said, his voice carrying the same authoritative tone that once directed battlefield operations. "Military precision." I tapped my fingers against the folder. "Had to be, sir. They've been careful." Pike's gaze shifted to the door as it swung open. A woman entered, tall, with silver-streaked black hair twisted into a sensible knot. Her charcoal pantsuit radiated quiet confidence. "Catherine Wells," Pike said, rising slightly as she approached. "Best veterans advocacy attorney this side of the Mississippi." Wells slid into the booth beside Pike without ceremony. She took my measure with one swift glance, the kind that catalogs every detail without judgment. "Colonel Pike mentioned your situation." Her voice carried the slight rasp of someone who's argued too many cases. "Your family diverted disability benefits for 9 years. I nodded, sliding the folder toward her. "Documentation's all there. Bank statements, forged medical evaluations, guardianship paperwork they were preparing." Wells flipped through the pages with practiced efficiency. Her eyebrows lifted slightly as she examined the forged signature on my medical evaluation. "Not even a good forgery," she muttered. "They got the loop in your G all wrong." "They never bothered learning my actual signature," I said dryly. The coffee shop door swung open again. 3 men entered, moving with the synchronicity of people who'd trained together. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, Corporal Winters, Private First Class Mendez. Shadow Echo, the surviving members. "The cavalry arrives," Pike said with grim satisfaction. Rodriguez slid in next to me, his prosthetic leg bumping against the table. "Sorry we're late. Traffic was a nightmare." Winters and Mendez grabbed chairs from nearby tables. Within moments, our small gathering had transformed into something that felt like a field operation planning session. "We've all written statements," Rodriguez said, tapping a folder of his own, character. "Testimonials, observations from our tours together." Mendez nodded. The CO signed one too, said. Maris was the best damn field medic he'd ever seen. My throat tightened. The validation felt. For and after years of family dismissal. These men, who saw me blood-soaked and terrified, who trusted me with their lives, understood my worth in ways my blood relatives never bothered to. Wells examined each testimonial with the same careful scrutiny she gave the financial documents. These will help establish credibility against any claims of mental incompetence. My phone buzzed. In my pocket. Nash's name, the 5th call today. They're getting nervous, I said, declining the call. They should be, Wells replied. Elder financial abuse carries serious penalties, especially when it's targeted at a disabled veteran. She shook her head. The court won't look kindly on that. The phone buzzed again with a text from Ivy. We need to talk. I'm outside your apartment. Open up. I showed the message to the group. They're escalating. Wells looked up from her notes. Good. Let them panic. Panicked people make mistakes. Your mother left 3 voicemails this morning, Pike added, crying about family misunderstandings and how your father only wants to help you. A bitter laugh escaped me. 11 years in the service. Purple Heart. And they think I need their kind of help. The phone rang again, Harrison's attorney this time. Should I answer? I asked Wells. She nodded. Put it on speaker, say nothing committal. I accepted the call, placing the phone in the center of the table. Maris, the attorney's voice oozed false concern. Your father is very worried about recent developments. He feels a family discussion might resolve these misunderstandings. What? Misunderstandings specifically? I kept my voice neutral, military calm. These accusations about financial matters. There's a perfectly reasonable explanation for everything. Rodriguez shifted. Beside me, jaw clenched. Winters stared at the phone with narrowed eyes. I'm listening, I said. Perhaps we could discuss this privately. Say tomorrow? Your cousin Nash offered to mediate. I met Wells' eyes. She nodded slowly. Fine. Nash can come to my apartment tomorrow at noon. The relief in the attorney's voice was palpable. Excellent. I'll let him know. After ending the call, Wells leaned forward. We'll wire you. Get him talking about the guardianship plan. He'll be recording. 2, Pike warned. Let him, Wells said. Our recording will be legal, since you'll be a knowing participant in your own home. Mendez grinned. Set the trap, then watch them walk right in. The next afternoon, I checked the recording device hidden beneath my simple blue button-down. The apartment felt smaller, with Nash's 6-foot frame taking up space in my living room. The family's concerned Maris, his voice carried the same patronizing tone he used with elderly clients. Your behavior lately seems erratic. I sat across from him, Garcia's leather cuff visible on my wrist. How so? These accusations. The sudden interest in financial matters. He leaned forward, voice softening to a conspiratorial whisper. We understand your condition can make things confusing. My condition? PTSD. Trauma. Related cognitive issues. He waved a hand vaguely. Dad just wants to protect your money from yourself. I kept my face neutral. Protect my disability payments by redirecting them to Mom's account. Nash's smile tightened. Temporary measure. For safekeeping. And the guardianship. Paperwork I found in Dad's desk. A flash of surprise crossed his face, quickly masked. Standard. Precaution. In case your condition worsens. And selling my apartment? Now Nash looked truly startled. How did you? It's my name on the deed. The listing agent called me. He recovered quickly. The family thought a smaller place might be more manageable. Somewhere closer to Ivy so she could check on you. Check on me or check up on me? Nash sighed, the sound of a man dealing with a difficult child. Maris, be reasonable. You're clearly not equipped to manage your affairs. The nightmares. The therapy appointments. The medication. The Purple Heart? I asked quietly. He brushed this aside. A formality. Lots of people get those. The dismissal burned, but I kept my composure. So Dad thinks I need help. We all do. Nash's smugness surfaced now, certain of victory. The court will see it our way. Your military records show psychological evaluations. With the right framing. He shrugged. Who would believe the unstable veteran over a respected family like ours? I let the silence stretch between us, giving him rope. It's for your own good, he added, mistaking my silence for defeat. You're damaged, Maris. Let us help you. The confession I needed, captured forever. Something cold and certain settled in my chest. I think we're done here, I said, rising from my chair. Nash stood, adjusting his expensive tie. Think about what I said. Fighting this will only make things harder. After he left, I touched the hidden recorder. In my bedroom, my dress uniform hung pressed and ready. The truth box sat open beside it, metals gleaming against worn cardboard. My phone rang, Harrison's number. I didn't answer. Instead, I took out Louis's mother's letter, reading the familiar words one more time. My son lives. Because of you. No matter what anyone says, you saved what matters most. I placed Garcia's leather cuff beside my Purple Heart, 2 symbols of battles fought and survived. Tomorrow, we face the courtroom. Tonight, I prepared for war. The next day, the marble steps of the county courthouse felt cool and solid beneath my feet as I ascended them in full dress uniform. Each polished button caught the morning light. Each metal told a story they tried to erase. Lieutenant Garcia's leather cuff peeked from beneath my sleeve, no longer hiding my scars, but complementing them. Behind me, Colonel Pike and 7 Shadow Echo Veterans formed a quiet phalanx. Their footsteps echoed in perfect rhythm with mine. Through the heavy oak doors, past security, down the center aisle of courtroom B, I felt eyes tracking me. Court officials nodded with subtle respect. Strangers straightened in their seats. Then, I saw them. Harrison, Lorraine, and Ivy huddled with 3 attorneys in expensive suits at the plaintiff's table. My father's shoulders stiffened as I approached. Lorraine's fingers fluttered too. Her pearl necklace. Ivy's perfect makeup didn't hide her sudden pallor. "All rise," called the bailiff. Judge Eleanor Thornton entered, her silver hair pulled into a severe bun. Her gaze swept the courtroom, pausing at the shadow echo veterans filling the back rows, then at my family before settling on me. "Interesting family dynamic," she murmured almost to herself. "Let's proceed." Sergeant Ford took the stand first. His prosthetic leg caught against the witness box as he settled in. "Specialist Gentry was the finest combat medic I ever served with," he stated, his voice carrying to every corner. "When our convoy hit that IED outside Kandahar, she evacuated 6 wounded. Under heavy fire. One of them was me." The courtroom absorbed his words in silence. "She managed a field hospital from the back of a moving Humvee while we took fire. 17 hours straight, no breaks, no complaints, just saving lives." Harrison shifted in his seat. Lorraine stared at her. Hands. The VA representative approached next, presenting spreadsheets on the overhead screen. Monthly disability payments of $1,950 were diverted from Specialist Gentry's account to this family trust, he explained, pointing to highlighted transfers, totaling $210,600 over 9 years. The financial expert followed, tracing the money through family accounts, Ivy's mortgage payments, private school tuition for her children, Harrison's country club membership renewals. Then Nash's recorded voice filled the courtroom. "Your dad just wants to protect your money from yourself. Once we get the guardianship approved, we can sell that depressing apartment." Ivy stood suddenly. "Your Honor, my sister has always had emotional issues since high school. This vendetta is just another manifestation of her." "I have evidence pertaining to that claim," I interrupted, my voice steadier than I felt. I approached the evidence table, placing my truth box beside the financial records. The metal clasps clicked open with quiet finality. Inside, neatly organized, lay the documentation of a lifetime of betrayals. I withdrew a yellowed essay with red annotations in my English teacher's handwriting. "This is my original scholarship essay for Bryn Mawr College," I explained, handling it carefully. Dated and graded 3 weeks before applications were due. I placed it beside a printout from the college archives. "This is the identical essay my sister submitted 2 days later, word for word, resulting in a full scholarship that should have been mine." Ivy's attorney tried to object, but Judge Thornton silenced him with a raised hand. "I think we've established a pattern," she said, her voice like steel wrapped in velvet. Her ruling came swiftly. Family assets frozen. $187,000 in restitution ordered, with interest. A permanent ban on guardianship filings against me. Harrison's face turned ashen. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes, not for me, but for himself. His carefully constructed reputation crumbled before him. Lorraine wept, but her tears found no sympathy here. Ivy exited quickly, avoiding reporters gathering in the hallway. Colonel Pike touched my shoulder. "What now, Specialist?" "Not going back to that house," I said. The words tasted like freedom. 6 months later, I stood at a podium addressing veterans about financial exploitation. Garcia's leather cuff now displayed proudly alongside my medals, no longer hiding my scars but telling a story. A young veteran approached afterward, eyes bright with purpose. "You helped me find my voice," she said simply. "In my new apartment, Luis's mother's letter hangs framed beside my unit photo, not as a reminder of what I lost, but of what I found." I didn't need their recognition anymore, I had told Harrison on that final day in court. The truth spoke for itself. And I, Maris Gentry, was finally ready to speak. It for everyone.